All right, guys, welcome to the Onelife Podcast. My guest today is Mina. Mina is a behavioral specialist, and you're working with children, right, at the moment?
I do.
Thank you for being here, first of all.
Thank you so much for having me.
I know you've got a million different things that you do. You seem like you're a powerhouse woman. You've got all these crazy degrees and all these skills. But we're going to stick to this to start off with, right?
You're making me blush. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate when someone works hard and they've put the time in. They're not pointing the fingers and not making an excuse. You literally have put the reps in on many different things.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here.
It's truly my pleasure.
So what are you doing exactly with the kids?
So I work for a company that is contracted through the Clark County School District. It's a brand new program, and we work with students in this multidisciplinary sense. So there's a qualified mental health professional, so a family therapist, marriage therapist. Typically it's children's therapist, but they're pretty open to just as long as you have the qualifications to work in a family or work with children setting. And then myself as a behavioral specialist and then a behavioral analyst. And so the three of us as a unit work to determine the needs of children with what's called ACEs, their adverse childhood experiences. So
ACEs?
Yes.
Average childhood
adverse childhood.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What does that mean exactly?
So aversive experiences can range from anything from like violence in the household, drug use, sexual trauma, gang violence, anything that's adversive to their ability to grow in a proper setting or mature emotionally properly.
How common is that?
It's not incredibly common. I mean, all of us as humans have some level. It's really rare.
But I mean, are those things you talked about specific? Would you say it's 5%?
Oh,
or you say to be higher than that?
It's very dependent on region. And so, I mean, some schools have if you're looking in like a Summerlin area, you're not looking at as many. If you're looking somewhere that's, lower income and there's gang situations, you're looking at a lot more. So
you're working more in those areas where it's more prevalent, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. And so you mentioned gang violence. What other things come under that? Like drug use, gang violence.
Drug use.
Would that be like sexual abuse, I guess? Like abuse on the parents or the wife?
The parents.
The kids.
The kids. There's, anywhere from children just being exposed to drug dealing situations, having to actually partake in some of these things. Some of the kids have to stay at home to take care of parents because of X, Y, and Z.
Okay. Is that hard to get your head around? Did you grow up in a pretty regular family?
I actually did not. And so
you're more aware of this, would you say, from personal experience?
I would say from my yogic standpoint, this is my dharma. I feel like that I'm doing this. The role and the job actually kind of fell into my lap in the most crazy way. And I've always been interested in neuroscience and mental health. It's truly one of my passions in life. And it's actually interesting how prevalent it is, but children are so resilient that a lot of times people don't notice. Like when I work with some of the children that I work with now, I recognize behaviors that I was very clearly doing at their age. But when, we've talked earlier about how the school districts are overworked and underpaid and understaffed and all those things, it's harder for the teachers to give that sort of individualized attention or even be cognizant that they're showing some of these signs because there's 40 kids in the class. You know what I mean? So it's a very beautiful program, and I'm very blessed to be part of it because now I feel like I would have done anything when I was younger to have someone like me to be there and listen and do things.
So that's amazing. So you're able to take personal experience, identify things quicker, But also, like, I grew up in the Brady Bunch, and I always say it out loud.
I love that.
My parents were still together. My grandparents were together forever. I had such a good upbringing, and I thought that was normal. That's the only thing I knew. I grew up in a small country town in Australia on the beach, and that was just normal. But as you get older, you start to meet different people. You realize, no, you're pretty damn lucky, and it's not all like rosy like that.
Yeah, you really would be surprised. Oh, even like food scarcity. Like some of these kids
Poverty,
don't even
right?
have food, and they would come to me and ask, like, "Miss, do you have any snacks or whatever?" Because
that breaks my heart hearing that.
It broke my heart, and I mean, right now I'm not making like a crazy amount, but I made it a sense to have snacks and things to provide for them.
That breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's
crazy. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, but we didn't go without anything. Yeah, I've had people be on the podcast talking about how kids only eat when they're at school and they're not getting fed outside, and that breaks my heart. That's what made me reach out and start to get more guests like you. So I'm like, how do we get more awareness on this?
Yeah,
because this is really upsetting.
During COVID, it was a huge thing.
That's what I heard. Yeah,
the kids were literally going to the schools to get like bagged lunches, and the last school that I was at, we were talking about it, and they said they were just giving out numerous to the kids because they didn't want to just account for the kid that went to the school. They knew that the house had like 5 or 6 other kids that had mouths to feed, just because they're not old enough for kindergarten or they're in middle school, they still wanted to provide that because...
So I never thought about that.
Yeah.
That's super... Okay, so you're talking about like what's happening on why these kids are... I mean, when you kind of said like not held back, but like suppressed in their ability to learn, is that a way of pointing it?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're in survival mode, it's survival mode, and they're in it too. And children, I mean, it's so sad. They're really resilient and they seem like they're really unaffected, but that's where a lot of these like ADHD symptoms and things come out into play because they're actually just in this high stress cortisol state that they can't even focus, or they're disassociating and they just don't even want to be in their bodies. So they'd rather, do whatever else.
What age kids what's the youngest you work with?
The youngest I've worked with is 2nd grade, and the highest that I've worked with currently is 7th grade.
Okay. Do the young kids any idea what's going on, or are they just kids and it's more later on that things are going to affect them? They're
actually really aware, but they don't express it.
Okay.
It's
they're probably unable to express it, would you say?
That or it's just not cognitively impactful because your frontal lobe of the brain where you make like decisions and a lot of cognitive thinking in that capacity doesn't develop until our early 20s essentially. Okay. And so, but the memory stays. Like a lot of children get these suppressed memories or things that they know, but they don't know. Like, for example, there's been a kid, like, I'll just make up a hypothetical. So, like, a kid will be talking, a small child, like, oh, I spent time with mom, this and this and this and that. And it's like, oh, okay, what do mom do on your free time? And they'll be saying this and this and that, and then out of nowhere, like if it's kind of a broken home situation, they'll be like, oh, sometimes I go with dad, but, sometimes dad can't take care of me, so I go to work with my mom. And it's like, they're telling you that they have this like really unstable home and like an unreliable family situation. Do they really fully comprehend on that level? Not until they're older, but they know that, oh, dad's not always around. So yeah, there's some kids are more clearly aware of it. But a lot of the times when you see those really, really mature children, it's typically because they've had to deal and process with some sort of something that had to make them be a little bit more mature.
Even at an
early age.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
That's so. What happens? Do you like to have conversations? Do you do group stuff? How do you start to do what you do?
So my role, I work in between both the qualified mental health professional and the behavioral analyst. So I'm kind of more the hands-on person. They see the children once to twice a week, depending on the severity of what they need. I can see them anywhere from 1 to every day, depending on if they have a specific behavioral program put into place. So some of my kids don't even need a behavioral program. They're more so needing the therapy aspect of it.
Someone to talk to.
Right. And so I still see those kids. I just am kind of like a check-in person, kind of like a safe space, safe friend, someone to get them kind of in.
Like a friend, an adult friend.
I'm really like a mentor kind of.
They're liking that, aren't they? Are the parents aware that they're seeing you?
Oh, absolutely.
And they're all for it?
It's 100%. We don't see anybody without consent. Like that's the way the program works. They have to be referred through the school for whatever behavioral thing. And then from there, we send out consent to make sure that it's cleared. If it's not consensual, we don't work with the kids at all.
So if I'm a dad, a drug dealer, the kid's seeing this, what does a kid do to... I guess show some red flags to catch the school's attention to lead to you to get the approval?
A lot of the times kids just act out for attention. Like they're not getting the attention at home. And so hitting,
like misbehaving,
fighting, a lot of it's behavioral stuff, or ditching and not being present to school. That's another big red flag.
What about it? That seems like male traits. What was more of a female thing?
Oh no, the girls ditch, the girls fight. Yeah, the girls.
So just as bad.
The girls actually, I think, in my experience that I have worked with, and it's, you know, I've seen more of the girl
really
cattiness, lots of drama.
So that's getting the school's attention. And did the school kind of talk to them, and that's when the profprofessionals come in?
So we're kind of the last resort for some of these
last
kids.
Line of,
some of them gone to behavioral school and got pulled out of the school. Some of them have just been like repetitively suspended and RPC'd. Some are like borderline going to be in digital learning or completely expelled. So it's kind of the last line of defense that I'm really glad that the school district, wanted to incorporate this because the kids need a chance to, they don't really realize, they do to some capacity, but they don't realize the ramifications of their decisions until later on.
Are they open to you? Like, just as like sweet lady, like yes, are they open to that, or are they against that?
So actually,
is that a weird question?
No, not at all. It's really funny because, like I said, I was working in a middle school setting and I look like I'm 12 years old, even though I'm 32. Especially when I don't wear makeup, I really look younger. And so at first, a lot of them thought I was a new student. A lot of the boys were like flirting with me. Until then, they saw me going around the school and doing stuff more actively. The kids that I work with directly, I've had very good reception to.
They're really looking for this.
Yeah. Some of the boys have been a little bit more shy, but I mean, that's just boys, and so it was actually really heartwarming to see how receptive some of them were. Like, some kid came already knocking on my door to like see me and talk to me about things and like vent without me having to go seek them out. Wow. So I'm like, wow.
So you're there for them all the time when you're there?
Yeah, I'm there 5 days a week.
Open door. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you've got someone else in and they come, like you'll make time or whatever it takes.
I had a situation like that where I was working with one student and another one came in knocking and like was definitely in a state of needing to be de-escalated. And luckily the one that I was working with was just the greatest, and they went back to class and I said that, I can come and get you later, and they were okay with it. And then I proceeded to work with the other student on de-escalation techniques to get them in a like regulated state. So,
gotcha. Yeah. No, that's really nice. Sorry, I'm asking a million questions.
No, I love it. I love questions.
I keep getting you off track.
No, it's all on track. It's all related, honestly.
See, you see him, you said close to every day. When you see him, what's the conversation? What's the process?
So it all just depends on, again, what their needs are and what their like behavioral plan is.
So are you trying to identify those needs or the behavioral?
That's already done by the mental health care professional. They figure out their like therapeutic needs in terms of like talk therapy. Yes, and then the behavioral analyst analyzes their behavior and then makes like a program for me to implement and look out for certain
What's an
things.
Example of a program? This is fascinating stuff, by the way.
I know, it's really cool stuff. It's really, I mean, behavioral therapy in the terms of like psychology is not an old science, but behavioral therapy is even younger. So it's been around like the late 70s, 80s as like an official, it's been around before that with B.F. Skinner and Pavlov technically.
Not named.
But named as what it is. But, for example, say there's a student who's not coming to school, like they're having an attendance issue. Very important with children and even us as adults, and it's been teaching me so much about how I relate to people is positive reinforcement as opposed to punishments. And so our programs really are completely ran on finding whatever is the incentive for the child to want to either come to school or get their homework done or not pull someone's hair in class. Like if they're food driven, say, they're not coming to school for weeks at a time or like only coming one day a week for the week. We start kind of more small, like, hey, if you can make it to 4 out of your 7 classes 3 days this week consecutively, then we come to an agreement, and it's literally, we do like a contingency contract where like I write out what I would ask and they tell me what they want. So say like a pizza party or something, a smaller scale, but buy them in McDonald's, something of another, then I agree to that and we agree to it, and then they sign it and I sign it, and it's a legitimate contract. Because we're trying to instill these skills for them so that they have the skills, not relying on their parents or teachers or anyone else, because
there's nothing forced against their will. Is that something you learn? Is that your own idea? Is that something do you believe in the way it's been done?
I do, yeah. It's really, it shows promise. It's not like a overnight quick fix thing, but...
And I'm sure you're starting very small. Very
small with a lot of the things, and it does work. It's been scientifically, there's research on it. And they respond to it too. I mean, like, you respond better when someone's praising you for doing things.
Yeah, we touched on that before we started.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation yesterday, like positive praise opposed to like, what's the other way of putting it? Like
a punitive, like punishment. Yeah.
Yeah, being punished for being bad. Like, and we related it to dog training, didn't we?
I mean,
and you were saying how people don't like that, but a dog shouldn't be hit or kicked.
No.
It should be rewarded for doing positive things.
And same thing with your girlfriend or boyfriend, husband, like you. And I mean, I've been guilty, and I'm learning so much about this, and it's back to familial patterns and generational trauma and how people talk. But semantics are super important. And say, you struggle with taking out the trash. And we're in a relationship, right? Hypothetically, and I'm always on you about taking out the trash and like getting mad at you about taking out.
I'm getting resentment. I want to do it even less now.
But as opposed, we flip it, and I ask you, and maybe you don't do it for a couple of days, but then you finally do it, and then I say, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing that." And then I just keep doing that over time. it's conditioning because you're trying to instill a behavior and you're getting a response by giving positive reinforcement, but you're more likely to start doing it more often without me asking 100%. You to do it, because I'm going to tell you something nice or be really sweet to you or give you a big hug from behind or whatever, right?
I'm in my 40s, and when my mom tells me not to do something, I'm still the opposite.
Right.
It literally, like, I've been at home for 25 years and it still makes me do the opposite. So I like what you're saying.
It's so true.
And just a simple thing like, thank you for doing that. How the patience though, the trash, right? Say it's like 2 weeks, it's stinking up, there's maggots, like, you know what I mean? There's got to be some point, there's got to be a different way of going about it.
Well, at that point, so this is something that my behavioral analyst has really honed in on me to understand, to like help teach others. If you are not in a time space or in a mental frame to follow through on whatever the condition is. So she typically tells me in the example of like teaching your kid to tie their shoes on in the morning, right? If you don't have the time to sit there and wait for them to tie the shoes on, just do it for them without giving them the instruction that they need to tie their shoes, because they're not going to associate the fact that you're just going to do it for them anyway when you ask them to do it. If you don't even ask them to do it and you just do it for them anyway in the morning, you're kind of bypassing this kind of like,
that's interesting,
this digging your feet in because I know mom's going to do it for me anyway kind of thing. You just don't make that available. You make these programs or things in the capacity that where you as a person implementing it are able to do it in a way that's going to be effective for the person who's trying to receive this implementation.
Okay.
It's all about consistency. Just like everything in life, is discipline and consistency, and that's really the key. And as humans, we just kind of struggle. It's a challenge sometimes to build those muscles of consistency and discipline. But yeah, it's quite a test in patience for sure. I'm learning so much, so much even
about yourself,
about myself, because I already knew I wasn't a patient. I'm not like the least patient person, but I can be a little impatient from time to time. And sometimes you do want to see immediate results. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in the instance of taking out the trash, right? You just don't nag at him. You just take out the trash and then you don't even say anything about it. You don't go afterwards, oh, I had to take out the trash. I
want to try some of these.
Use for good, not for evil.
But it's got me thinking. It's got me thinking on several different things.
It's got me thinking on several different things.
Without asking, but just going and doing it. And by doing it, the person's probably going to feel guilty. Like, oh, that was supposed to be me. I'll make sure I do that next time.
But you don't make a big deal of it.
Yeah, you just do it.
You just kind of do it. And then the next time you ask again, and hopefully they do it in a better time span, and then you just praise them for it. And then the times kind of start getting shorter and shorter, and
then eventually it's been done, and then you can work on the next thing. So one thing at a time. Before you know it, you can. Would you only do one thing at a time?
Typically, we try to keep it simple.
Is that just with children, or would adults you could do more?
I mean, with children you can do more too. It's just you don't want to overwhelm, right? I mean, we're all susceptible to overwhelm and getting short-circuited, and sometimes when you put too many things on the plate, then it seems almost unbearable.
Yeah, everything drops and
and then it starts to play into the like. I know that I personally have the tendency of like, if things get too overwhelming, like, oh, I can't do anything, and then the freeze response or the fawn response kind of plays in. So we kind of just want to keep it baseline. You don't. I mean, there's definitely some challenge to it, but you don't want it to be so challenging that it seems infeasible or impossible.
We're talking about like generations, monkey see, monkey do, how it gets passed on.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Oh my goodness. Generational things are so real. Generational trauma is so real. Ancestral trauma is so real.
What is that?
So based off of like your lineage and where you come from, for example, I mean, the Jewish people as a whole have a lot of ancestral trauma because throughout history, they've had a lot of plights. And so a lot of struggles that kind of translate into how you see the world and like react to the world. Like, we have these lenses, everyone does, that's based off of our experiences and our personal upbringing, our traumas, things that happen to us at school, what have you. But those things also translate through generations.
Interesting.
And a topic that's getting really, really, really big, and it's really exciting that it is like epigenetics. And I was having a discussion with someone recently about how these generational diseases like diabetes and things like that, and this is again just my personal speculation, I'm not a doctor, I'm not quoting anybody by any means, but what if those aren't like actual genetic things, rather epigenetic things from years and years of high cortisol, high stress, then through that eating a certain way to handle these emotions, and then becomes a familial lineage of diabetes, when realistically, I mean, people cure themselves of diabetes all the time. My cat got cured of diabetes. He was diabetic for like a few months and then went into remission. And so it's a lot of things in life are your environment.
Do you know who David Sinclair is?
Yes.
Yeah, he talks about something like 10 to 20% is actually passed down through generations. And that was amazing when I heard that.
Yeah.
Because my grandpa died from a heart attack. My dad nearly died from a heart attack twice. To me thinking, oh God, I'm going to have to worry about a heart attack. Yeah. But now I realize as long as I take care of myself, it's on me.
And do your cold plunges.
Do my cold plunges and all that stuff,
are going to help with that for sure.
Yeah, so it just made me realize that I think everyone's pre-programmed that, because my grandfather had diabetes or breast cancer or whatever it is, therefore I'm going to have it. And I definitely get what you're saying, but also get like...
Oh, for sure. I'm not saying that it's not in your genetics at all. I just think I think people put so much weight, like you're saying, on that programming and that notion, and the fear actually, it's like you manifest the disease,
what you think about, right?
By thinking about it and worrying that that's what's going to happen to you eventually. And so then it actually,
and I believe your mind is so strong to kind of will something to an existence, even if it is a disease. It's kind of crazy.
It is, yeah.
So talking about like, what's some examples of things that's being passed through generation as far as behavioral? Like the way that man treats the wife, or hey, you're in the kitchen, I do the work, or I mean, there's a million different things, right? So many different things. And it's like we talked about, it's like monkey see, monkey do. That applies to diet, that applies to exercise, that applies to how you behave, things you say, things you don't say. Yes, absolutely. Your ability to show vulnerability and be emotional. So, for example, some of the kids that I worked with systemically just hated the police because their parents were incarcerated, and so then that is passed down. That's interesting. And it makes sense. Yeah, and in an interesting inverse, one person that I worked with actually only wanted to talk to the white people at the school because they viewed them as I don't even know how to like describe it, as somebody of more rank because of, police and
like detention officers being more, or from the ones that they saw, or correctional officers being white, that they
really?
viewed them as people that were the people to listen to and answer to, as opposed to not listening to, you know, teachers that were of color or of other backgrounds.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It was really interesting.
Yeah, like a kid hating police because their parents locked away. It makes a lot of sense. But I'm sure it's never been explained the other way around why, or they're too young to understand. Or they're too young to even be told, maybe, depending on what it is. That's
Or like another big one is coming from like a very violent household, like that a lot of bullies are actually just mirroring behavior that they're seeing
Breakfast
in their
Club,
home, right? Like
you're saying Breakfast Club?
I mean, I'm saying my personal life actually. When I was in middle school, I had a friend that I'm still friends with to this day, but I used to pull her hair, and not like super, super aggressively, but I was like, wow, I kind of like was not nice to my friend. But in my household, nobody hugged me or told me that they loved me, and it was kind of a violent household. And so all I knew as expressing emotion or feeling was through being physical. And so like those kind of behavioral things translate
So that was you trying to show affection.
You're trying to connect with another human, and I didn't know better. And
you didn't have the tools.
And to this day, every now and then, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I used to pull your hair, and it's water under the bridge, but it's like, it really does affect you, your environment, or, you know, I don't know, seeing your parents steal, then you tend to start to be conniving and thefty and those sorts of things. And like you said, all monkeys see, monkey do. On the opposite end, you know, if you're an altruistic person and you instill good things like that into your children, then they're going to be more likely to do that, right? Do community service and things like that. Less likely to steal.
What about if say your father's an alcoholic? Generally, it's like the child is either become an alcoholic or they're not going to touch alcohol.
Or they do both. They become an alcoholic and then they go, once they realize, then they're like, no, never again. But that's also part of like the addict journey. But yeah, alcoholism, drug addiction, those things are also very like lineage and prevalent in households. It ties into a lot of codependency too. Children, a lot of these kids have codependency issues already because they're almost becoming a parent for their adults. You know, because the parent's not fully there. They're either drunk or not on something, and they have to either parent themselves or parent both of them, take care of younger siblings.
That goes to growing up early, like you said.
And then you get stressed out, and the next thing you know, like you're 13 years old and you're like, oh, well, I'm feeling all these things that I've been hearing mom and dad saying and complaining, and this is how they problem solve. So let me just go ahead and use the same coping strategies because they were never taught proper coping strategies. So
my question for you is, you're a child, you go through some form of this, and then you're 13, and where do you go? How do you identify that you do have that trauma or you do have something you need to deal with, and then how do you go about doing that? People who aren't lucky enough to have people like yourself.
So a lot of the times people do fall through the cracks, and it's until they're older and can take their mental health into their own hands.
When you say older, like you're talking like an adult?
Unless, you know, like a lot of these kids don't have availability or accessibility to going to a therapist, and realistically, do their parents have the money for it either?
Are they even gonna know that they need a therapist or someone to talk to? You know, I'm kind of getting at like I didn't think about this stuff when I was young.
There was a child, not that I interacted with, but I've heard from one of the other specialists at 8 years old that they were having suicidal ideations. So, I mean, it all just depends on your level of awareness.
Okay.
You know what
but
I mean?
That's a pretty I feel like most people are going to recognize that.
Yes.
Opposed to like, hey, I'm just going to have a drink, or I'm going to start smoking cigarettes or weed, or...
I think I'm trying to...
I know it's a pretty broad question, but I think you get what I'm trying to get at.
I do get what you're trying to say. I feel like until like more in high school, and again, just as going off of my own personal experience as an adolescent when that was, because I know I was having problems definitely in middle school.
Yeah.
But some of these kids know that they need help, but they're protecting their parents so much that they can't reach out to whomever, because it's going to cause their parent to get incarcerated, which is only going to perpetuate their trauma, because then they're getting separated from the one person that they love. And
no matter what they've gone through, they love their parents more than anything. Yeah.
At the end of the day, pretty much it's instinctual to love your parents and have that unconditional love for them, and especially at the younger formative years, because they're your means of survival too.
Yeah.
And kids are really sweet and innocent, and that's a lot of the behavioral problems is just lack of them getting the confirmation that they're worthy and the attention that every, not only child but adult human being, like we're communal by nature. We deserve to be with others and to be seen and heard and not isolated. And a lot of the times the kids with trauma either are forced into isolation or like self-isolate because they don't know how to process a lot of these things. It's pretty complex. Yeah.
Let's go the other route. We talked about all the negative side.
Okay.
What should be parents be doing? I mean, you talk about positive reinforcement. You're talking about communicating, leading by example. Give me kind of a rundown of what makes a good parent and what should parents be doing?
Oh, I don't want to say what makes a good parent.
What in your professional opinion, I mean, like you talked about a bunch of different things then. In your opinion, what makes...
I mean,
what should we be doing?
Being present for your children. Like, I kept saying that, these kids just want attention, and all
When you
kids...
say attention?
Attention, like... checking in and saying, how was your day? And
so it could just be very simple.
Feeling, yeah. But some kids, they want playtime. Like it's like the 5 love languages. You're familiar?
Yeah.
Children have love languages too. We all have things that appeal to us more as individuals. And so knowing that and appealing to that is really important. Like you can...
How do you find that?
Observation, you can ask blatantly, like how do you like it better when I give you toys, or do you like it better when we draw or go to the park? Do you like it when I cuddle you, or do you like it better when... Because kids are like that too.
When I think about my daughter, I can tell you exactly what she likes more. And I've asked her, she's told me, and we've got it very clear.
Yeah.
It's very clear now.
So that's important. It's just getting to know your children like you would get to know your friends or your spouse or your boyfriend or whatever. I think a lot of the times we forget that they're people too, that they're very much their own person with their own set of emotions and ways that they react to things. And you can have 2 kids in the same exact household with the same exact traumas and the same exact upbringing, and they're going to turn out differently just because we're all different in our ways that we are,
Yeah, 100%. What about showing affection as a parent?
So yeah, I think that's incredibly important, and instilling self-worth and like self-love. Those things are really, really important. Hugging your kids.
How do you build self-worth with a child?
Oh, telling them that they're great at whatever that they do, not like whatever that they do, but like when they're doing something great, you know, building them up, helping them to recognize. And on the opposite side, when they're not doing so great at something, saying, you know, we can work at getting better at things. It's not something to get completely discouraged about. Perfectionism is a big thing with children with trauma because they just want to do everything right to appease whatever, because they just want to do whatever they can, you know. And so reminding children just as much as reminding an adult that it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn, that's how we grow. You can't start something without taking your first step, and often the first step is going to be kind of messy.
There's nothing wrong with failing or making mistakes, or it's a learning process. The whole thing's a process.
So instilling those things and giving hugs, giving backpack.
And then like really not trying to think about the not scolding your children, not telling what they're doing wrong, but waiting until they do things right and then getting behind that.
Yeah. And like as hard as it is, extinction behavior, and so sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. There's these things called extinction bursts when you're trying to like change behavior, where things will be going good and then all of a sudden then they'll be like raging and doing the thing and being like really, really bad. And bad, there's no real behavior is good or bad. It's just how we perceive it, right? But you just kind of literally have to ignore it, which is
really just
and just kind of wait until it dispels and then you address it. But when kids and even adults are in crisis, like when you're losing it and you're upset, like calm down. It doesn't really work, you
Nobody
know,
likes to hear that.
Or giving someone like your 2 cents when they're in this state of whatever. And that's something that I've learned, that like you have to wait for people to be receptive to what you're trying to share, or it's just going, you know, and a lot of the times it's making you seem pretentious or whatever when that's not your intention.
It's making them angrier and more upset.
Yes.
Very, very fascinating.
Same for kids as it is for adults.
It's easy to forget that, but so talking to the kids like little adults, I like that.
And I mean, you got to be sweet with them and whatever, but at the same time, just having that awareness that, you know, they're cognizant beings. They can make decisions. You got to give them the chance to make decisions and help guide in the most patient and loving way. And I mean, I'm not perfect. I get upset. Not at the kids, but I mean, just like in general in life. And so if you are, you know, finding yourself getting frustrated or things like that, just know that you're human too. And maybe you need to take a break and go for a little moment and breathe it out and then return to the situation. And that's typically, you know, sometimes we forget to do that. And it's
like a self-awareness thing, right? Like the gym's kind of my outlet. If I go in, I'm upset, I'm angry, I always walk out and I'm good. That's it's just self-awareness on what you need to do. And
so learning coping skills that help you de-escalate your
building your own tools, your own coping skills. I like that. You have your qualifications.
My qualifications.
You have what degrees? What?
So I have a bachelor's in science, technically in biology, but it is a neuroscience path. I just chose to get a biology overlay because I have done other jobs in other capacities. Like I worked for the USDA, working with ants at one point in time. I've worked in herpetology labs with desert tortoises. I've worked in chem stock rooms and made chem solutions. And so my focus and what I did my selection of classwork was for neuroscience, but I got the biology umbrella with a psych minor and chem minor. And then I also have a bachelor's in foreign language and Spanish language and literature as well.
So very, very highly educated. So we're talking about schooling and money and If you don't mind me asking,
No,
what's
okay.
your thoughts on this?
Oh my goodness.
Like
Well,
the whole schooling thing in America.
the whole schooling thing in
Go
America.
to college, get a degree.
I mean, I would never tell someone to not go to college because I learned so much about interpersonal relations and all sorts of things that I don't think I would have gotten if I didn't do that. I studied abroad in college too. I lived in Costa Rica for a period.
Oh, cool. How was that?
It was phenomenal.
Yeah,
this was before, and I still to this day, that's one of my regrets. Was like, why did I move back? I should have just stayed there and rode the yogi retreat wave that everybody now is going to Costa Rica. So I was back there in 2014, and so it's been a little while, but beautiful experiences that I definitely don't think I would have had on the same capacity if I didn't go to college. But the system is not good, and it puts a lot of people in a lot of debt, and then
it's more of a business, right?
It's such a business, yeah.
Like overpriced schooling, the ability to get a loan, no problems, which you can't get rid of that debt.
Yeah.
Overpriced. The 18-year-old can go into 100,000 worth of debt
and
for the rest of their life.
And a lot of the times it makes no sense. Like for me, my parents did not help me with my schooling at all. Like I paid for it and I was working and doing the whole thing, but they were basing my FAFSA off of what they made, despite the fact that I had nothing to do with that.
They weren't paying it.
Yeah. And
so if your parents are making a lot of money, you can actually get.
I mean, I don't know if it's different now, but at least at the time, I think I talked to my advisors a lot, and there was, to my understanding, no way of me like emancipating myself unless I actually emancipated myself. And so, yeah, the whole system's kind of.
It's crazy. Like weird. 52% of people go to college, drop out. So you rack up the loan and you don't even get the degree. And I don't know the exact stat on how many people get the degree and don't actually work in the field.
I mean, now I'm working in my field, but I was working cocktailing for years.
Were you really?
Oh yeah, I worked.
Is that just because you're making more money doing that?
Making more money and that's the other thing is like you go to school for all of this stuff and then they want like more qualifications than like what you can get, and like they want prerequisites. And even like I said, I worked in labs and stuff, and somehow I still didn't have some of the prerequisites that I needed, and then the entry level for whatever it was way less than what I would be making doing cocktailing or blackjack dealing, which I did for a good period of time to try to cut down some of these loans and all of the things, the whole system. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, like we talked about like 80% of us live paycheck to paycheck.
It's nuts, yeah.
What's your thoughts on that, and why do you think that?
Well, I mean,
I know this is off subject.
I know it.
I think it's a must conversation. I always try to bring this stuff up.
I just love talking about whatever, so don't worry about off subject. I mean, yeah, the paycheck to paycheck thing's crazy with inflation and just the market. It's just systematically, the United States is just not in a place that's conducive to like taking care of its people.
So I feel like we are trained to not be able to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like you go to school, get good grades, get a good job, work 40 hours a week for 40 years and retire. And there's no self-education. There's no liabilities versus assets. There's no how to do your taxes, how to save money. That's really going
to say, why don't they
teach
us how
financial
to do
education.
Right.
And lottery winners. Do you know what percentage go broke within 5 years?
Most of them.
It's like 80%.
Yeah, most of them.
And what is it like? Professional football players, all these sports athletes, same thing. Just like the lottery winners. What's her name? Mike Tyson made $500 million in his career, ended up broke.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, right? Because we're taught and it's drilled into us from an early age. The newest watch, the newest phone, the newest car, the bigger house, the nicer clothes.
All of those things,
and
all the clout things.
Yeah. And for me, I literally had to train myself out of it. You see my unit. It's a small unit. It's not in the best area. I drive a $6,000 Camry paid in cash.
Perfect.
I don't have any debt.
That's good.
When I make money, it's my money.
There you go.
I don't live paycheck to paycheck.
That's a good thing.
If I don't want to work tomorrow or the next 6 months, I don't have to. Yeah. Nobody else can say that. And it scares the crap out of me.
It's a scary thing. Yeah.
And it's not a bragging thing. It's just I had to read books and learn how to do it differently.
Really?
Because I didn't like the way it was going.
It's
I was
true.
like, I don't want to be stuck.
Yeah. I'm learning about investing myself right now. And I mean, conceptually, I get it. A lot of the Bitcoin and NFT things, sometimes it's like, it's so non-tangible that it kind of freaks me out. But that's how they kind of make it, program us to fear the non-tangibles and wanting to like see, and it goes back to like having the things to show that I have the money as opposed to actually having the money.
Yeah, they say broke people dress rich, rich people dress broke. And there's another, I love this stuff. Like, I always talk about this stuff. It's like,
have you been to the Florida Keys? So the Florida Keys is just like tons of rich millionaire men, and they all look like homeless.
Oh, really?
Like they're all just like,
there.
well, yeah, because they're just living on the beach and just having like a beach fun time. And it's just like, you wouldn't know that like that's the inventor of Bluetooth right there, but he's got like a $1 billion yacht around the corner, but he's just chilling because like, it's ego, you know what I mean? It's true. I read a book, I can't remember which one right now, but they said that like the higher up you are, the nicer you are too, because
100%.
you don't live in that survival mode, and it's not like this cutthroat that you have to hurt someone. You're not angry at the world.
The world's not against you.
Because you've got the means to stabilize yourself, and you feel good, and you know what where your food's coming from, where you're sleeping at the end of the day. You have play money to do whatever. So you're a nice and pleasant person, you know?
As I've heard this before, a lady the other day said, as soon as you make over $76,000 a year, the quality of your life doesn't change. It's interesting, right?
That is interesting.
So she's like, yeah, you can buy bigger, better things, but as far as comfortability, you're pretty good at that income. And that really makes you think. Because there's so much pressure we buy stuff to impress people we don't like. Full stop, right?
All the time.
Like, if you want to date someone and you're dating him for the car he drives, or the ring, or the watches, it's probably not...
It's not going to last.
Probably not the best girl for him, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so okay, like, living where I live and driving what I'm driving, because I want someone to ask me, what's the last book you read? What's the best conversation you've had? Like, what's your favorite quote?
How's your heart feeling today?
Stuff that actually matters, right?
Things that matter.
Not this like facade.
And that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's an illusion in yogic and like Hindu philosophy. It's called Maya. It's the illusion, right? It's keeping us separate from what the reality of happiness is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your main thing is yoga, right?
That's
outside of like up here.
That's my physical. Off? That's my movement. Yeah, I really.
Do you find it hard to switch off, being as kind of like analytical and switched on as you are?
Oh my goodness. Yes and no. Yeah, and when I'm on the mat, I'm on the mat. And like I really just tap fully into it.
Okay.
So that's cool, and I'm grateful for that. But it's taken a lot of years of cultivation and practice. Actually, you were asking about my qualifications. So in college, when I was doing these neuroscience courses, they do a lot of like college studies, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we get all of the data from. Is these, and I participated in one for cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness techniques, and it was under the format of Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, and he does a lot of breath work, guided meditations. That's where I actually learned.
Speaking my language here.
Yoga Nidra, actually. It all happened really fast. Like my boyfriend at the time, this is like 2009, he took beginner yoga in college as like an easy elective course. and he was a snowboarder, so it benefited him. And I like popped in one day with him because I was like, want to go to yoga with me? I was like, yeah, whatever. And the teacher's testimony just was like, I'm very much about holistic health, and that's why I never went to medical school. That was my intention with college, was to go and be a doctor. But as we've been talking about things, I'm kind of against the system.
That's a whole different conversation.
That whole system thing doesn't work. And so I'm talking,
you're a prevention rather than cure type of person, right?
Well, we're going to cure, let's do it holistically in terms of like mind, body, soul connection, not just pump full of pharmaceuticals. And so the yoga instructor was talking about how she was in this crazy car accident and had all of these things and like how yoga saved her life. And I was like, oh, wow. And I had a really great experience. And unrelated, in my Spanish class that week, another girl friend of mine was like, oh, do you want to go to Bikram yoga? And this is when Bikram was a real big thing. And I was like, oh, sure, whatever. And I went with her, and this is all within the same week. And it's like, wow, I really like this. And so I started doing Bikram a lot and like vinyasa yoga. And then when I graduated college and moved back here, I found yin yoga, which is what I predominantly teach right now. And then from yin, I found Kundalini, which is a beautiful ancient teaching that incorporates a lot of the things like cold therapy that, the cold plunges.
Have you done that stuff?
So I got my certification in Kundalini yoga. And one of the things that we're actually supposed to do as a Kundalini practitioner is we wake up in the morning and you tongue scrape, and then you hop in the cold shower and you oil pool, and you have like this very particular regimen to get to like purify the body before you go into meditation.
Are you doing it?
Right now, I'm not doing the greatest job, and I will admit to that.
Have you tried the cold?
The cold, I'm doing a little bit of cold. My whole routine, the whole 50-minute thing, I'm not doing right now just because my living situation and everything is kind of all over the place.
What's your little bit of cold?
But in the shower for sure.
So you do the whole thing. It's 30 seconds. What are you doing? I need to know numbers.
So you want to know? This is my little secret. When I was doing my certification and we were doing this, I was really, really into Redbone's Come and Get Your Love for some reason.
What is that?
It's
a song?
It's a song.
Okay.
Come and Get Your Love. It's a really old 70s song. Yeah. And when I started my practice, when we began our certification, we were supposed to like meditate, and a mantra was supposed to come in, and my mantra was I am love. And so I think during that time I was listening to a lot of music that was more love, but like empowering love. And so I listened to the extended version, which is like, I think 6.5 minutes. And so you do like the front body, like it incorporates tapping too. And so you do this tapping and massaging in the front, and you turn around and make sure it hits the back of your neck and gets your whole back holds. And it's a fun time.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan. Have you seen my?
I love that you're doing it.
I figured you must have. Like, she's talked about cold way too much.
Yes, because I'm really proud of you that you're doing this like disciplined service. Like you're on a 30-day, right? Or how many days?
No, I've done cold showers for 6 years.
I know, but I thought you were doing like a regimen right now.
The plunges I'm just on forever.
Oh, okay. For forever. I love that.
No, literally forever. Like I'm very big on do things slowly, do it kind of one increment at a time, but then do it so it's set up forever.
And that's the
way. When I say that, I mean that. Like I've been in the gym 5 days a week for 25 years.
I love that.
I fast. I eat once or twice a day. I've been doing that for 5-6 years. The cold showers for 6 years. So I don't like to do things by halves. So if you're going to do it properly.
Yes.
But don't do 10 things at once and half-ass all of it. Pick one thing, start slow, small increments, make it a routine, and then become second nature. And so the cold is not a big deal. Like 2 months in, I actually I did 2 today.
You like crave it now.
I actually, crave it's probably a good word. I love it.
Yeah.
What has the yoga done for you, like mentally? Are you meditating too?
Yes. So Kundalini yoga specifically is more focused on pranayama and the meditation portion. There's definitely some asanas and movement in it, but that one's more geared towards getting you into like a meditative
It's more of a
state.
spiritual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely highly recommend if you haven't tried. I mean, we can do some sometime.
Yeah.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, yoga is one thing I'm not doing consistently.
Okay.
But it's on my list.
The things.
But it goes back to what I said. I'm not going to try to do too many things at once because then I'm going to fluff it all. But I know, like, I'm in my 40s now, starting to get niggly here and there. And I know yoga would I know it would fix all that.
For sure. And there's different modalities, right? Like a lot of people get so overwhelmed because they're just like, I'm not flexible. I can't move that fast.
Therefore, I won't do anything.
I mean, I want to
get fit before I go to the gym.
Right.
I'm not going to do anything.
Right. I had hip surgery. Now it's March, so like
how did you have hip surgery?
Oh my goodness, that's a whole story.
You're too young to have hip surgery.
So I had a torn labral. I had a labral tear, and so they had to fix it because that's.
How'd you do that?
It was a workman's comp car accident. I was sitting passenger in a car completely. Like I told you earlier, I don't know. Sometimes my luck isn't the greatest, but it's for the greater good to teach me the lessons that I need to learn.
Good attitude.
I mean, it's taken a while to cultivate this attitude, and some days I don't have this attitude, but that's the yoga. The yoga brings you back to it. Actually, it's really funny that you asked that question because I've had, numerous traumas through my life. When I found yin, actually, my dad passed. He took his own life, and that was like super, super traumatic for me. And being able to be with my body and like learn how to breathe through it and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's a lot of what yoga teaches you is to...
I always say that, but I'm talking about sitting in an ice bath or doing Muay Thai. I'm not talking about losing your dad.
I mean that's life stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone goes through things, but it really helps you, in my personal opinion, process things and work through the things. And again, different modalities do different things. So like the more vinyasa-y yogas are more yang in nature. And so they give you energizing energy, as opposed to like yin, which has been my main practice that I've been focusing on a lot, is more feminine and teaches you how to tap into receiving and allowing and letting your body literally like become limp instead of this like tight whatever. And it's so funny because you can really tell as a yoga instructor when you're doing class, like who's got anxiety, who's got things, just by like how they hold their body and the level that they are able to release into it and breathe. Yeah.
That's what I'm finding with the cold is my ability to be comfortable being uncomfortable has increased dramatically. And I can get comfortable within seconds now.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised. And then outside where I would be uncomfortable, I'm comfortable in seconds. And what I found is relating to so many other things and aspects of my life. What type of things have you noticed? Like obviously you mentioned your dad, but what other examples of being comfortable in uncomfortable can you think of?
Oh man, I've had really interesting living situations, and
which is super stressful, right?
Super stressful, and it's super uncomfortable. Gypsy periods where like, even one big one for me, when in my hip surgery period, there was like a whole month that they were, for whatever reason, like holding my disability checks, and that was like my only income. And like I had to just accept that that's what was happening and really allow and breathe and pray on it. And I was talk about food scarcity. Like I was not really eating much while I was trying to like heal my body, which wasn't very good. But, you know, I just prayed on it, and somehow like friends would show up with food or things like that. Don't get me wrong, I still have my moments. I'm personally a very emotional person, but it's helped me to kind of hone some of that in. And like I look at the way that I react to things now, still emotional, but give me that same instance like 10 years ago, I would be ruminating on it for days. Like
wait for 10 years from now.
Ruminating on it for days and just like sitting angry. And
wait till you're in your 40s.
I can't wait.
And you're going to look back and you're like, I was awful back then.
I'm hoping I'm going to be like the most zen person.
My ability
by
to
then.
stay like zen state is getting better and better. It's kind of amazing, actually. My days are very level. It's just, you just learn that. What I've kind of realized is like things always work out, and like A to B, right? Massive stressful, tell your buddy about it. My world's coming to an end. Path, go with the flow. You're gonna end up there anyway. And then learning to be uncomfortable, going with the flow, adapting when you need to, process elimination, one thing at a time. It works out.
Yeah, talk about go with the flow, and actually it ties into my job. You know how I was saying that it kind of like fell into my lap earlier. So in this period of me healing my hip and not being really able to walk and all of these things that were happening over the summer, I was seeing someone, and he was kind of like, well, what are you going to do? Because again, I was cocktailing prior to, and I was kind of ready. I've tried to shift out of cocktailing a couple times. That's actually how this injury happened. I was trying to get another job, and then I got injured literally that first week on the job, and then went back to cocktailing because I'm like, well, maybe I'm supposed to be stuck in cocktailing. But anyway.
So you wanted to get out. I
wanted to get out, and then I got out, and then I got back in, and then finally like my hip surgery happened and whatever, and I was sitting there, and all I wanted to do was focus on healing, like focus my energy on healing. And he had good intentions, I think, but he was very like, oh, you need to start moving more. What are you going to do for work? What are you going to do this? And I'm like, I'm just worried about healing right now. And like, it was very, very intense energy, and
there's a time and place for
and it felt.
And you need to be able to recognize when.
And
to,
I did,
and well, he needs to be able to recognize when to bring that up and when not to.
And I hope eventually he does, but and again, I think his intentions were good, but it was just not the time nor the place, and we ended up going separate paths. And it's crazy because literally that week that we stopped talking, I was very much doing, so I like to do morning mantras in the summertime during normal hour, well, not normal, but like when the sun comes up a little bit later to where I can do sun gazing in the morning. And I was very strict about my like mantras and sun gazing thing and doing my journaling. And that week I got back into journaling because I have had a very interesting relationship with journaling. So anyway, I sat down and did my mantras for like 30 minutes, and I sat down and I like journaled, and my phone started ringing. And I typically don't answer my phone for like numbers I don't recognize because it's usually whatever, bots or whatever, but I answered it. And this woman was like, hi, do you have a moment? And I was like, yeah, I guess. And I thought it was just going to be some sort of, sales something. She's like, I'm looking over a resume from 2018 that you put in with our company. And I'm like, 2018? And she's like, yeah, are you by chance looking for a job? We're not hiring for that same position, but we're hiring for something in the field of mental health. And I'm like, well, I honestly have zero recollection of what I even applied for in the first place, but let's have this conversation. Yeah. And so I went from having someone like stressing me out about what I'm going to be doing and what my income and everything is going to be to like just being like, no, this situation and this person and the like control and the stress is not healthy for me. Let's separate.
Yeah.
And then I got all this abundance. Like I got the job and that I have now, and it's just really interesting when you allow things to come rather than, and not to say that you shouldn't be doing the work, because that's, you know, one of the laws of karma. Like things aren't just going to magically manifest. You have to put in some sort of work. But I mean, doing your meditation, doing your journaling, getting clear about like what's important to you and what you need.
This is aligned with my goal. Yes and no to things.
Yeah.
Being the person that you want to be to attract the people that you want to attract, whether it's a relationship, that's a job opportunity, that's friends. And then your environment. Being very, very, very aware of your environment, who you hang out with, what conversations you're having, and then setting the right boundaries with the right friends.
Right. And knowing your worth in that too. Like, you know, not allowing someone, like if you want a relationship, then you don't let someone sit there and tell you like, oh, we'll see what happens. Like you get very clear about the things. And sometimes we worry that that's going to scare away like a potential, what's meant for you, you're not going to scare away.
Because you're showing red flags quicker.
Right. And it's said time and time again, what's meant for you will make its way to you. And nothing that you really can do is going to completely derail it if it's meant for you.
Yeah, I think if all the stars align in your own life, I feel like everything kind of comes with it. And I know from like personal experience, like reading constantly, journaling daily, meditating daily, cold plunging daily, exercising, podcasts, creating this men's mental health group, everything's so aligned. So I know anyone who's coming into that path, like yourself, is the right person to be aligned with me. But you know what I mean? I have no doubt anyone who comes in there's no room for the wrong people anymore at all.
I love that.
Everything's moving forward so fast that there's no room for anyone holding me back.
And it's that level of awareness. It's when you know yourself that you don't allow those people in. And so it's like when you have self-doubt or like slight insecurities, or
I've just embedded out of me.
I mean, I am looking forward to the next 10 years. If you're saying my 40s, that's where it's going to be.
I would say it's the 40s. I would say just read as many books as you can consistently. I literally read book after book after book after book, and have for years. And that is my go-to.
I love that.
So you learn from people's mistakes. You hear that. It's just, there's a million different ways of putting it, but yeah, read as much as possible. I
love reading. That's one of the issues is I have too many books.
I do audio.
Yeah, people, I can't, I shouldn't say I can't, but it's difficult for me to stay on it.
It's not for everybody. It is for me.
Even the Kindles, like I was gifted a Kindle. I like the physical, tangible, turning the pages. Yeah. And so I have like 3 bookshelves, and that tends to be, people are like, you're a hoarder. And I'm like, they're just books. I really love my books.
I've listened to a book today for probably 2 hours.
Which one?
Cybernetics.
Okay.
It's one of my podcast guests recommended it. But it's just by being in the car going places, I've had 2 hours of education without having to try. That's what I like about Audible. And if I went to the gym today, it would have been 3 hours, but I had Muay Thai instead. So that's what I love about Audible, rather than have to physically sit there and read and stay focused, which I love reading, but it's self-awareness and it works for me.
I mean, excuse me, if it works for you, it works for you, right? It's that self-awareness.
Yeah.
I got a frog in my throat.
Anything else you want to touch on before we finish up?
No.
Unless
there's anything that we missed.
Is there anything like mental health with you? Anything that you would want to share with someone else as far as dealing with it, or getting on the right track, seeking a professional?
My throat chakra has something to say.
I've done it so many times, Ravi.
Oh my goodness. We've got messages for the people source. Come on now. Excuse me. Oh no. I'm all over. That there's really no shame or guilt to be associated with having a hard time.
Your voice is
I know. It's, oh my goodness. Okay.
I've started a podcast like this.
Really?
And I was like, oh my God.
Like, why is this doing this right now?
And the more you try to hold it back, the worse it gets.
Right. And I'm like, now my eyes are tearing up. It's fine. I love it. This is authentic me and it's perfect. I have.
So there's no shame.
I'm really, that's the one thing that I'm working on cultivating even for myself, is to not have shame. And if there's something that I can share with others, that like we all go through the things and
we're all human. Like
we're all
said,
human,
right? Yeah.
and we don't have to stay in the patterns and stay in the things. And even sometimes I dig my heels into the things and I'm like, well, I'm just this way. But like, no, we're not. We don't have to be a certain way. And if you are a certain way and you don't like it, you can change it. And it's okay to change it. You can decide tomorrow to wake up and be whoever you want to be.
I love that.
Yeah, you really can. And it's just putting in the time and the effort and doing the small little habits or little micro tweaks in your habits to build discipline and formulate a whole new life. Like, use your resources. Your friends care about you. One thing I think is really important is always be mindful and consentful with that too. Like trauma dumping and trauma bonding is a thing too. And so it's
trauma. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I've gone on dates and things where like I just have an energy, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I have a very comforting energy, and the kids feel that, and a lot of people feel that. And so sometimes people tell you a lot of things and maybe you're not in a space or you're not ready for it, and so talk to your friends, but always ask them if they're in a space like, hey, are you available to hold me in this capacity? Because that's also allowing your friends to have the option to, like, if they're not in a space to help you. Sometimes in my life, I felt more alone by sharing my truth with people who were not in a space to hear it or could be receptive. And then that feels isolating. And
so you're shared and they've been unable to help or relate or help.
Right.
And they've kind of ignored it, and that's made you feel like they're not there.
Or not even ignore it, but just be like, oh, that's really hard. I'm sorry. And sometimes you need a little bit more than just like, I'm sorry, you know. And so it's being aware of your friends and just, if there's anything anyone can cultivate is just knowing yourself and having that self-awareness to know when you need certain things from whomever, whatever, and just kind of filling those niche places with the people that align. It's all alignment. Everything really is.
I like that. Very well put.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That was that was fascinating. Thank you.